Good Wednesday morning, and thank you for watching Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. My name is Eugene Daniel. We are delighted to have you watching, whether it's on YouTube or on our streaming app, 13 News Now Plus, which we encourage you to download for Roku, Amazon Fire, or Apple TV. I'm joined in our studio here in Hampton Roads, Virginia, with producer Sarah Calloway, waving to the camera, rocking her James Madison sweater today, and a meteorologist, Craig Moeller, with that beautiful sight behind you, Craig, of the Virginia Beach oceanfront.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing a little work down there near the jetty. They've got a crane out there, a little pushing the sand around. And I don't know that it's beach replenishment, but they're grooming the beaches a little bit. So not a bad day down at the oceanfront early this morning.
Not a bad day, and if you're working down there, a lot better today than it's been in the last several weeks, and I know we're going to talk about that in just a few seconds here. First, I want to give you a quick look at some of the things that we are monitoring at the moment. A lot of live events are happening right now. There to your top right, I do believe we are waiting for the moments in which the House Judiciary Committee will have a hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi on the ongoings of the Department of Justice. Then there at the bottom, have you heard about the Buddhist monks who have made their way from Texas all the way to Washington, D.C.? Well, that is a live look as we are expecting them to make the last of their track here today. I believe there's going to be a moment of meditation with them today. We'll talk about that because that has just been absolutely incredible. And then at the right there, to the left, I do believe, Sarah, remind me, I think this is the
Alec Murdaugh.
That is it. Okay, I didn't know if we were showing the House Appropriations hearing, which is also set to go underway with the funding for Department of Homeland Security set to get out. There's going to be a hearing from leaders in DHS, but that right there is an appeals hearing happening in South Carolina for Alex Murdaugh. We're going to get to that too today because a lot of people interested in that. Of course, he's been convicted, currently serving time for the deaths of his spouse and son. But we got to start with this forecast real quick because we've been treated with another pretty decent day, Craig.
Yeah, well, this morning, temperatures very mild. As we take a look at the temperatures over the past week, you'll remember how cold it was as we got into the weekend and Monday. But yesterday, 58 was the high, and this morning we've been in the mid to upper 50s already this morning. So as we take a look ahead, what can we expect? Well, a couple cooler days coming up tomorrow and Friday. Today, temperatures are going to drop back a little bit closer to 50 as we go through the afternoon. And then tomorrow, we're going to see temperatures in the low to mid 40s and low 40s on Friday. Temps getting back to near 50, but our normal high is 53. I want to direct your attention to Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's where we get back up into the 60s. So we do have some warmer weather to look forward to. Couple other issues to mention as well. You said off the top, Eugene, how nice it was down at the oceanfront. We had a few sprinkles early, but the temperatures have been pretty comfortable. Right now, we've actually fallen down into the lower to mid 50s, so we are seeing some cooler weather coming on into the region. Down to the south, upper 50s to near 60s, so still relatively mild across North Carolina. But there's the trend, again, cooler weather later this afternoon with clearing. Now, we've got a front that's pushing through the area. That front will clear, and then colder air shifts. So as the winds come around to the north, we're going to see that colder air sweeping in this afternoon and overnight. We have seen some showers. That stuff's winding down, so the futurecast shows that. You can see how the skies are going to gradually clear later this afternoon. Great-looking day, a little bit cooler, but still pretty pleasant through the afternoon. Overnight tonight and into tomorrow, a cooler scenario. Temperatures are going to be in the lower to mid 40s tomorrow. Mostly sunny, a few high thin clouds, and then into Friday, just about full sunshine. But again, cooler, upper 30s, low 40s on Friday. Let's talk about what's going on with our rain chances on Sunday. I do expect numerous showers as an area of low pressure moves through the area. You can see with the GFS, the outlook here, how we've got this area of low pressure tracking across Georgia and Tennessee, working across the Carolinas, and then swinging off the coast Sunday night into early Monday. Winds are going to pick up significantly Sunday night into Monday, But this isn't a nor'easter in that it doesn't come up the coast and sit and spin for a long time. This is just an area of low pressure which is coming through and moving off the coast so that later Monday, even though that system's strengthening as it moves away, it will pull away and we will see conditions improving later in the day. Now the winds, take a look at this. As we go Sunday night into Monday, you can see our model here, the Euro, showing those winds really increasing Sunday night and into early Monday. These are 10-meter winds, so you're talking up about 30 to 35 feet. Those winds could be really howling. I expect winds here to be closer to like 30 near the ground, 30 to 35 mile per hour gusts. So windy Sunday night into Monday. Something we'll watch. We could adjust that up or down a little bit. Not too bad on the water today, but small craft advisories go up tonight. Highs again, we've already seen them mid to upper 50s to near 60 across the region. Temperatures turning cooler now that we're getting into the late morning and afternoon. So get ready, guys. Lows tonight near 31. Tomorrow, 44, mostly sunny, and there's the rest of the 7-day forecast. Temperatures back to 50 on Saturday, mostly sunny, Eugene. So as you're putting together your plans for your romantic activity Saturday, you've got good weather to get out and enjoy.
I mean, last time we checked, I thought you were going to do something really personal and private for Annie, and I didn't know if you wanted me to come out in a nice little, like, usher, waiter type role, and I can help you set the table or something like that.
Would be
play some music.
That would be all. Or you could serenade.
Eugene
has the voice of an angel.
Yeah, I can do it all.
Yeah, my wife, I think she would really enjoy that. We might have to work.
I'm here.
All right.
For a very generous fee.
Yeah, we'd have to take care of you for sure. Anyway, on Sunday, if you're not able to spend that time with that special somebody, just know wet weather's coming in, and that will continue into early Monday. After that, we're going to welcome more sunshine, and I'm really excited about temperatures back into the 60s Wednesday, Thursday, and probably Friday as well.
I love to hear it. We have been due for some nicer weather, right? We mentioned the view behind you at the beach. Not quite beach weather yet, but you mentioned those people who are working. Seriously, it has to be. And I don't know if they were, delayed. Maybe they were not out there last week or the week before last. But if they were at any point, you have to think they are smiling much more today than they were then, because it has just been brutally, brutally cold. What were we? We hadn't reached 50 since the 22nd of January.
22nd of January was the last time we were above average. So we went a long time. I don't remember what the official count was. Around 19 days or something.
Yeah, something like that.
That we were below average. So our normal average is now 53. That's where we should be. And we are going to be above that by the middle of next week. And we were above that again today, really. So this morning, mild, turning cooler, but hang in there. It gets really nice next week.
Yeah, another day, though, that you can still get out there, take a walk, or do something of that nature. I didn't exercise at all outdoors in the last few weeks. So.
Really? You didn't take advantage of yesterday?
Yesterday was the first day.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the first day. I felt like I can go out without having a coat. I had on a hoodie. But I felt like I may have been able to do without that as well. So I'm excited. This is getting closer to my language. This is my speed right here.
It's all right.
Yeah, this is all right. Anything else we need to be aware of, Craig?
Nope. We'll be watching it, keeping everybody updated. Again, turning windy Sunday night into Monday, and then we'll welcome that warm-up next week.
We will certainly welcome it indeed. Appreciate you. And welcome back, man. Welcome back to after a little quick break. Seeing your grandson. We appreciate you coming through here, Craig. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears really quickly. I told you that we were monitoring a few hearings that were starting, and then the Alex Murdaugh trial, that appeals hearing that is happening right now. But let's start with the House Judiciary Committee. They are holding a hearing today where Attorney General Pam Bondi is testifying on the recent actions and just the state of the Department of Justice. She has now sat down. She is in her chair. Saw that moments ago while Craig was speaking. So let's go ahead and listen. Right now we see Jim Jordan, the chair of the committee, is speaking.
The mindset that says it's okay to release these guys is the same left-wing mindset that thinks it's okay to weaponize government against your political opponents. And that is exactly what we had in the previous Justice Department. The Biden-Harris Department of Justice called parents domestic terrorists. The Biden-Harris Justice Department used FBI SWAT teams to arrest pro-life advocates. The Biden-Harris DOJ targeted traditional Catholics The Biden-Harris DOJ pressured social media companies to censor Americans, and the Biden-Harris Justice Department launched not one, but 2 investigations into President Trump, spending over $35 million to try to bring down their political opponent. To further this effort, they sought the phone records of over a dozen Republican members of Congress. Even the Democrats said this was wrong. They got bank records for scores of White House officials. They even paid at least one confidential human source $20,000 for information on President Trump. And of course, while doing all this, they couldn't tell us who planted the pipe bombs, who leaked the Dobbs opinion, and who put cocaine in the White House. But thank goodness the American people saw through it all. Americans were tired of being targeted for their beliefs, tired of the lawfare, tired of the rampant crime throughout this country, and that's why they overwhelmingly elected President Trump. And what a difference a year makes. What a difference a year makes. Under Attorney General Bondi, the DOJ has returned to its core missions, upholding the rule of law, going after the bad guys, and keeping Americans safe. The Trump Justice Department has restored the rule of law. Murders are down nationwide by 20%. In D.C., violent crime is down by 28%. The federal surge in D.C. resulted in 8,000 arrests, the seizure of 800 illegal guns, and the recovery of 16 missing kids. The Trump Justice Department apprehended a suspect in the pipe bomb investigation, and they've arrested 6 of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives in just 1 year. Of course, they arrested narco-terrorist Nicolas Maduro, and they seized a record number of drugs flowing into this country. Trump Justice Department put an end to targeting Americans for their beliefs. Attorney General Bondi rescinded Attorney General Garland's anti-parent memorandum. Department of Justice ended the practices of using the FACE Act to target pro-life Americans. They've refused to tolerate attacks on places of worship and investigations of traditional Catholics that we saw in the previous administration. On her first day, Attorney General Bondi disbanded the Foreign Influence Task Force that was pressuring social media companies to censor Americans. And the Trump Justice Department has ended lawfare. Under Attorney General Bondi, along with Director Patel, they've worked to expose the political nature of Arctic Frost and the Jack Smith investigations. They've turned over hundreds of pages of documents to Congress, and that's why we know, for example, that Mr. Smith paid at least $20,000 to some confidential human source. That's why we know that Jack Smith knew it was unconstitutional to seek to toll records from members. But since the litigation risk was low, and because members would never find out about the subpoena until years later, they charged ahead and violated the Constitution. The Trump Justice Department has changed DOJ policy to require prosecutors to tell judges if NDOs relate to members of the separate and equal branch of government, the Congress. And to top it all off, the Trump Justice Department opened an investigation into the conspiracy behind the Russia collusion hoax. The Justice Department has put common sense ahead of politics. They sued to keep boys out of girls' sports. They secured deals with universities to stop race-based admissions and anti-Semitic practices. And after discovering rampant fraud in Minnesota, the Justice Department, under the leadership of Attorney General Bondi, has established a new National Fraud Division. In fact, I met with Colin McDonald, who will head that division, last week. I think he's going to do a great job. There's a lot of work to be done in that area, but I want to thank the Attorney General for her great work in the first year on the job, and I want to thank you for being here. With that, I would yield to the ranking member for an opening statement.
We're going to have much more there from that hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi testifying before the House lawmakers, but we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back in about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. We're going to head back to Washington, D.C., where Attorney General Pam Bondi is currently testifying before House lawmakers in the Judiciary Committee. This as a lot of things are happening underneath the DOJ in particular. We're talking about the Epstein files as well. And just wanted to look at the state of the agency and some of the decisions that Bondi and others have made. So right now, members of the committee have been giving their opening remarks, and we do expect to hear from Bondi here shortly. So let's listen in live to that hearing.
With over 100,000 employees at your disposal, you acted with some mixture of staggering incompetence, cold indifference, and jaded cruelty towards more than 1,000 victims raped, abused, and trafficked. This performance screams cover-up. Convicted sex trafficker and groomer Ghislaine Maxwell opened the gates of hell to Virginia Giuffre and hundreds of other victims, as Virginia recorded in her remarkable book, Nobody's Girl. But when Maxwell was subpoenaed to come testify before Congress, you and Todd Blanche quickly moved her from a higher security prison to a minimum security camp in Texas, where she's enjoyed 5-star treatment, including catered meals, private gym time, and access to a therapy puppy. All because Todd Blanche, who's utterly failed to investigate the monstrous crimes of Epstein and Maxwell's co-conspirators, spent 9 hours with Maxwell and satisfied himself that she would have nothing untoward to say about Donald Trump, which is your only real interest in the matter, based on institutional performance. But abandoning victims and coddling perpetrators is what you do best. When the FBI opened a criminal investigation into the brutal killing in Minneapolis of Renee Good, a poet and 37-year-old mother of 3, by Trump's masked paramilitary ICE agents, you shut it down. You claim you're investigating the cold-blooded murder of Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse at the VA. But how can we trust the administration when the president and Kristi Noem called Preddy a domestic terrorist and Stephen Miller called him a would-be assassin? Not only do you refuse to share evidence with the state and local investigators and prosecutors in Minnesota, you have blocked their access to the crime scene and the evidence. How are you seeking justice for Marimar Martinez, the Montessori school teacher in Chicago who was shot 5 times by a Border Patrol agent who bragged about it on text? Or the family of Keith Porter, a father of 2 shot and killed by an off-duty ICE agent in LA? Or the family of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, shot and killed in Illinois minutes after he dropped his kids off at school? There's no sign of any movement at the Department of Justice. You even launched a criminal investigation into Renee Good's grieving widow. How sick is that? But it's even worse. You've turned the People's Department of Justice into Trump's instrument of revenge. Trump orders up prosecutions like pizza, and you deliver every time. He tells you to go after James Comey, Letitia James, Lisa Cook, and Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve Board, and members of Congress like Adam Schiff, Mark Kelly, Alyssa Slotkin, Chrissy Houlihan, Jason Crow, Chris DeLuzio, and Maggie Goodlander, to name a few, and you snap to it. You replace real prosecutors with counterfeit stooges who robotically do the president's bidding. Nothing in American history comes close to this complete corruption of the justice function and contamination of federal law enforcement. And the good news is many serious lawyers at DOJ, including some of your own original appointees, have refused your lawless orders. Danielle Sassoon, your original pick for acting U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, resigned rather than follow your corrupt order to quash an indictment against Mayor Eric Adams as a political favor from Donald Trump. A Federalist Society member who clerked for Justice Scalia, U.S. Attorney Sassoon refused to participate in this blatantly corrupt scheme. Her top assistant, Hagan Scotton, an Iraqi war vet and 2-time Bronze Star recipient who clerked for Chief Justice Roberts and then Judge Kavanaugh, promptly resigned too, writing to your office, quote, "I expect you will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your motion, but it was never going to be me." You and the president nominated Eric Siebert, a 15-year career prosecutor, to be your U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. But after 5 months of investigating Letitia James and James Comey,
we're going to stick with that, but we wanted to take a quick moment here. We finally have live the Buddhist monks who have made their way all the way from Texas to Washington, D.C. You are taking a live look of the group as they are walking down Constitutional Avenue in our nation's capital. Can you imagine this, Sarah? Walking, I believe they began in Fort Worth, Texas. From there, it's been, 2.5, almost 3 months of their journey. They made it through Virginia at one portion when it was still cold out there, walking, and now they're in Washington, D.C., all to promote peace and unity in our country and the world. It has been a remarkable thing that they have done, that they are continuing to do, and they've had to face some challenges along the way. One of the monks was injured in a crash at one point and still later on was able to join in with the team. There you have it. They are walking. I'm trying to remember how many exactly of them that there are, but it's at least about 20 or so, I do believe, who are along for this journey, as you can see it for themselves. People lining up on the sidewalks. They've been anticipating and waiting for this moment. It's been cool, Sarah, to see videos from their journey and to see how many people have shown up to support them, but also the inspiring nature of it all. We've received messages from people. I know I've personally gotten people who have sent me messages on Facebook inbox and social media saying, we really want you guys to talk about what they are doing because it's inspiring to us, to our community. But man, it's tough. Sarah's eyes just went wide. I mean, it is so difficult. Let's see. I wonder, Sarah, if we can see how many miles has this been at this point?
It's 2,300.
2,300 miles. Just a group of Buddhist monks and their dog.
And so I feel like they weren't on my radar until maybe they hit North Carolina. Because do you remember when we got that first round of winter weather?
Yeah.
I think they had to halt and stop for a little bit because I remember they were popping up during our stream and I was very concerned for them.
Yeah, I've been concerned throughout it too. I remember they were on my radar. We did a story prior to the winter storm on the monks, but also the dog who has been making the journey with them. And that was my first kind of, oh my goodness, where they're going, where? And at that point, I think they had only been on their journey for a few weeks. For those who are wondering how long they've been on this journey, I said a few months. It began October 26th at the Vietnamese Buddhist temple in Texas. And as you see, it is now early to mid-February, and they are in Washington, D.C. This is the end of their journey. They are coming into D.C. with a purpose, again, to promote peace and unity, but they are also expected to ask Congress to recognize Buddha's Day of Birth and Enlightenment as a federal holiday. So they say the other thing they wanted to do along the way was to connect with people, and I think that they've done just that, right? I think that they've connected with a lot of people. And if you didn't know about their journey at the beginning, certainly people across America know about their journey now. And their dog, they've been documenting this journey on social media. The dog's name is Aloka. Aloka, the dog that's been, man's best friend. I actually
did not know that they had a dog with them.
Yes, yeah. That was my first introduction to what they were doing, is that there's a dog. And apparently the dog has racked up like millions of followers on social media too. So that's pretty incredible as well. So
I also just want to say, I think it was around a dozen monks that were taking part in this walk, but this looks like a much larger group. I wonder if they've been joined by local monks.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Feels like several.
It looks like there's that's a large group.
Yeah, I want to say it was maybe 13 that started this. This looks like a much larger group than what we have been following. So I wonder if they've been joined by locals once they hit DC.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. And I know that they're supposed to have a moment of meditation today as well. We talked about that yesterday. So that would make sense that you would have locals who are joining. But also take a look there. I don't know if we can get audio on it, Sarah, if at all, as we are, preparing to go to break. But let's see if we can get audio just a little bit, because I wonder how people there are also, are they saying anything, celebrating? People have their phones out, of course. Looks like we just froze on looks like our stream just froze there. But speaking of freezing, you see all that snow that's still compiled on the side. Obviously we have much better weather now, but speaking to those conditions that they've had to face, that is all a part of it too. So just remarkable journey that they have had, and glad to see that they have made it to Washington, D.C. again, all in the name of supporting peace. So good stuff there. All right, we got to take a quick break here. Your time right now is 10:27. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. We were just showing you the moments that those Buddhist monks all the way from Texas have made it to Washington, D.C., walking down Constitutional Ave. They are promoting peace and unity in the country and the world, but they're also going to be trying to get lawmakers to pass a national holiday as well. Meanwhile, also in Washington, D.C., we have the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, currently testifying before the House Judiciary Committee with the ongoings of the Department of Justice and how they've been handling things so far after 1 year. So let's go ahead and go back to that hearing, and we hear now from Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Across this country, this administration has been sued 627 times. We've fought through a nonstop flood of bad faith temporary restraining orders from liberal activist judges across this country. America has never seen this level of coordinated judicial opposition towards a presidential administration. It is not only an unlawful attack on the executive branch's authority, but a serious attack on the democratic process. In spite of this unprecedented judicial activism, we've attained 24 favorable rulings at the U.S. Supreme Court, their emergency docket, and even more to come. We've done so while ending the weaponization of the prior administration by dropping FACE Act prosecutions, exposing the Arctic frost scandal, via congressional disclosure, thank you, Chairman, and restoring one tier of justice in this country. To address the Epstein files, more than 500 attorneys and reviewers spent thousands of hours painstakingly reviewing millions of pages to comply with Congress's law. We've released more than 3 million pages, including 180,000 images, all to the public, while doing our very best in the time frame allotted by the legislation to protect victims. And if you brought us a victim's name that was inadvertently released, we immediately.
Okay, we're trying to juggle between a lot of things happening right now. We're going to continue to follow this, weave in and out with that and very important hearing. But right now we want to go to El Paso, Texas. Earlier today, the airport there was shut down for in and out travelers, with authorities citing a security issue that has since been lifted. We thought it was going to last for days. Right now, it appears we're getting an update on what that was all about. So let's go straight to El Paso, Texas.
That failure to communicate is unacceptable. These types of decisions have consequences. Medical evacuation flights were forced to divert to Las Cruces. All aviation operations were grounded, including emergency flights. This was a major and unnecessary disruption, one that has not occurred since 9/11. El Paso is not just a dot on a map. We are a major city. We are the 6th largest city in the state of Texas, and we are the 22nd largest city in the United States. Without hospital, military operations, and emergency services and critical infrastructures that depend on coordinated and reliable airspace operations. Decisions made without notice or coordination puts lives at risk and creates unnecessary danger and confusion. From the moment we learned about this, my office worked with Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Major General Taylor at Fort Bliss, and our local, state, and federal partners to get answers and to push for this to be corrected and lifted, which it was. I appreciate those efforts. I also want to say thank you to the leadership across our community who came together to work through this problem. The city leadership, the El Paso Airport, and our federal and state partners. Your professionalism and dedication to public safety made a difference. El Paso deserves better. El Paso deserves better communication and better coordination and more respect for the El Paso and the people that live in this community. We will be following up with the FAA to make sure that this never happens again. In closing, I want to emphasize that El Paso has always been a safe city, and we will remain one of the safest cities in the United States. I'm going to turn it over to, who's next? Laura, who's next?
No, we're going to open it up to
Okay.
questions. We're going to open it up to questions. I will ask you, please wait till we get the microphone to you. How many emergency medical flights or urgent critical flights were diverted because of this situation?
So I had a call this morning with some of the hospital operations. I don't know the exact number of flights, but I can tell you that there was a lot of surgical equipment that was coming in from Dallas and other parts of the country to do surgeries here in our community. That type of equipment did not show up here in El Paso.
What was the official reason given to you by which agency for the closure of the airport?
Yeah, so we're still determining the official reason, but I can tell you that the FAA was the primary agency that made the decision to shut down our airspace here over this community. So the official reason, we're still trying to get that answer of why it was closed down here in El Paso and southern New Mexico.
And they say there was no communication with the city. What does that communication look like when what the federal government says was a security threat? What was that?
I think at the very least that communication looks like calling the city, calling our chief of police, calling the public safety officers that we have in our community to alert them that we're going to be shutting down your airspace in your community. None of that took place. So we woke up, just like many of you, at midnight last night, 1 a.m, to the texts and the calls that we received that our airspace was shut down. So better communication from our federal government to your city, especially your leadership, that you're going to shut down your airspace. That coordination, that communication just did not happen.
You were talking about not letting FAA do this again in any near future or anything without communication. Is there anything that, I don't want to say they can face, but that El Paso is doing for them to know that they can't just like close the aerospace?
Well, I think, certainly that we've got to look into this more and find out what happened, what caused this to occur. This is certainly something that the FAA needs to look at themselves and figure out what did they do and how can they improve to make this better. Because you just cannot, again, we're a major city. El Paso's a large city. You cannot just shut down a city. There was people coming to El Paso. Our airport was in chaos. Our community was scared. All because someone decided to shut down our airspace. You just cannot do that. And they lifted it real quick.
So let's talk about this for a quick second there. You're hearing from officials of El Paso talking about what they're calling an unprecedented situation where the FAA overnight shut down the airspace for the El Paso airport. Now, originally we were told that this would impact the air travel in that general area until February 21st. It has since been lifted. This all coming in, breaking this morning. Well, they're saying they're still waiting for exact communication from the FAA. Well, we have the Trump administration and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. They've already been posting about it. Here's what Sean Duffy said on Twitter just under an hour ago. He said the FAA and the department acted swiftly to address a cartel drone incursion. The threat has been neutralized and there is no danger to commercial travel in the region. The restrictions have been lifted and normal flights are now resuming. So that is what they are blaming it on. An administration official also telling ABC News Mexican cartel drones breached U.S. airspace. The Department of War took action to disable the drones, and they have determined, along with the FAA, that there is no threat to commercial travel. The issue that you're hearing there from the officials in El Paso is that seemingly to them, according to them, there was no proper communication to tell them what was going on, to give a heads up, and it led to a lot of flights obviously not going in and out of the airport or the general area, but also some medical flights that had to be rerouted. And we all know when it comes to anything medical, every single moment counts. But that is the update out of El Paso. Those restrictions have been lifted. The Trump administration, through the FAA and the and through the FAA, saying that they have determined no commercial threat is there, but blaming it on Mexican cartel drones breaching U.S. airspace. Okay, just wanted to get you there real quick because that was something that broke this morning. I do think it's time for us to take a quick break. We'll do another one here in about 2 minutes. We'll come back with more here on Live Impact News. A lot that's taking place right now. As always, thank you for staying with us here for Live Impact News. We have been monitoring several situations unfolding at the moment. Let's head back to our nation's capital with the hearing happening with the House Judiciary Committee. Attorney General Pam Bondi is testifying here on the ongoings of the Department of Justice. This on the heels of so much new information coming out about the Epstein files and questions on the department and others and how they're handling it with that case. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and take you to that live hearing.
For what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information.
Congresswoman, you sat before, Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General
Twice.
Bondi,
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a specific question that I would like you to answer, which is, will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
That's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the
my
answer.
time.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't
a
she
question.
ask Merrick Garland this?
I am
Twice
reclaiming
when he
my
sat in
time,
chair.
and when I
will
reclaim my
continue to
time,
answer.
it is
Mr. Chairman, the
my
gentlelady's
I'm
reclaimed her
not going
time.
to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentlelady. The gentlelady has 17 seconds.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, so let me just
Chairman,
say
I'll
this.
direct it to
What
you.
a massive
No, I'm
cover-up.
answering a
Mr.
question.
Chairman, will you restore her time? The witness
I'm
is
not going to get
interrupted.
in the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time
doing
and
theatrics.
let me have my time.
The gentlelady from Washington controls the time. The gentlelady has 17 seconds. You can proceed with your final
Thank you.
17 seconds.
What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be. Donald Trump made the release of the Epstein files the center of his political campaign because he thought it would benefit him. Then you got into office, Attorney General, claimed to have a client list, only
Regular
to
order.
then say that there was no list. Your deputy, Todd Blanche, met alone with Ghislaine Maxwell and transferred her to a minimum security prison. And now you continue the cover-up, and I wish that you would turn around to the survivors who are standing right behind you and on a human level
Chairman,
apologize
The chair now
to
recognizes the chair.
them what you have done.
The time of the
I
gentlelady
yield
expired.
back.
The gentlelady, you have no time to yield back.
Theatrics.
We appreciate the thought. And I would argue the central issue in the last election, the presidential election, was securing the border. The gentleman from Arizona who knows something about securing the border is up for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for being here today. In 2022, Lafarge, which is a French cement company, pled guilty in U.S. federal court to participating in a criminal conspiracy with ISIS. That conspiracy contributed to the deaths of U.S. service members fighting in Syria during Operation Inherent Resolve. As part of the plea agreement, Lafarge was required to pay more than $775 million to DOJ's Asset Forfeiture Fund. In February 2025, my colleagues and I sent you a letter urging the department to review the petitions for remission submitted by the families of those fallen service members, including several of my constituents. The previous administration ignored these victims and our requests and left their petitions unresolved. My question for you on this particular issue is if you're willing to work to ensure those families that their petitions will be reviewed and brought to a resolution.
Congressman, we are aware of that, and we're committed to doing everything we can to support the victims and work with you. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, appreciate your answer. And now let's go to something that is also pressing that I've been working on for years, and this is the FISA Section 702 and Arctic frost. In January 2025, you testified before the U.S. Senate and agreed with Senator Lee that, quote, anytime an American citizen's private communications are intercepted or stored, whether through incidental collection or otherwise, those communications should not be searched without some showing of probable cause, close quote. You still hold that view today, I assume?
Yes.
And During the most recent FISA reauthorization, I offered an amendment to establish a clear warrant requirement for searches of Americans' data while preserving every publicly cited operational exception, including emergencies, defensive queries, cybersecurity threats. And my intent was to ensure the Department of Justice could continue to keep Americans safe while also ending warrantless searches of U.S. persons' data. Are there any additional circumstances or exceptions that you believe must be included to ensure DOJ can continue to operate effectively while still protecting American citizens' data and privacy?
Yeah, Congressman, we are committed to working with Congress to uncover weaponization and other misconduct by Jack Smith, by others, Arctic Frost, everything that happened under the past administration. And we are committed to working with you on that. And we are working with Chairman Jordan, with the House Intel, with all of our my fellow cabinet members on resolving that issue.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad you brought up Arctic frost, because Section 702 was used in the Arctic frost investigation.
It was.
And information derived was used by Special Counsel Jack Smith. And my question has always been, and no one's been able to answer this, is what was the legal predicate for using a foreign intelligence authority in the Arctic frost investigation? Have you been able to ascertain any legal predicate?
Congressman, what I can tell you today is that has been referred to my office. I can't discuss anything regarding that because it is very active and ongoing.
And you probably can't answer this one either, but I really want to know if Section 702 queries related to that matter involved members of Congress, which we know at some level it did, congressional staff, which we know at some level did. We've heard that journalists or other U.S. persons not suspecting of acting as foreign agents were also caught up in that. Can you answer that question and say whether queries did cover all those groups I just identified?
It is a very active pending investigation within my office. However, I believe many members of Congress have stated that their phones were part of Arctic frost. We are well aware of that, and we are taking this very seriously, and this is a very active investigation. And I would keep going and say if any member of the Democrat Party, if any of them, if that had happened to them, we would take that just as serious as we do. And they should be jumping up and down, screaming, supporting you and what you want to do, because this should be a bipartisan issue.
Well, I hope it is a bipartisan issue. You know, I'll just leave with these last couple of questions, which I'm sure fall into the same investigation privilege. But that's this: how many such queries were actually conducted overall? This is outside Arctic frost in the prior year by the FBI or other intelligence community. And particularly, we really need to know what were the legal standards applied? Did they use probable cause? Did they use reasonable articulable suspicion? Or did they have no individualized suspicion and just were gathering up information? And that's beyond the investigation regarding Arctic frost. I don't expect you to have that information today, but if you can help get that information so we can understand the extensive nature of this continued misuse of 702, it would be very particularly helpful.
And it was extensive. Yes, Congressman. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
I have a UC, Mr. Chairman.
And that is the gentlelady from Texas.
I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record. El Paso airspace reopened after FAA quickly rescinds 10-day flights restriction. This was published by the Texas Tribune on February 11th, 2026, and it says it was because of an impasse with the DOD over the use of unmanned military aircraft and not triggered by Mexican cartel drones.
Without objection.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I didn't hear back about the second round of questions. I assume that's not happening. I just want to be able to assure the members, certainly on my side, if not both sides.
That's not a point of order.
No, that every member will get 5 minutes with the witness. Will there be 5 minutes for each?
Yeah, you get 5 minutes, yeah.
With the witness. Okay, very good.
Yeah, okay. And are you up next? Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I want to begin by acknowledging the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse who are in the room with us today. I want to thank all of you for your bravery in speaking out I want to say that you and the other survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice. In particular, it is shocking that the department did not redact the names of Epstein's victims, but it did redact the names of their abusers. I don't know whether this was done out of incompetence or whether it was deliberate and malicious, but either way, it is completely unacceptable. Even more troubling, the DOJ has failed to bring any of these perpetrators to justice. Instead, it has engaged in a relentless pursuit of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. I want to focus on just one example. The Attorney General of my home state of New York, Tish James. This DOJ has been hell-bent on securing an indictment against Ms. James for something, anything, simply because she held Donald Trump's companies accountable for years of financial fraud. And indeed, the department manufactured an investigation against her for alleged, quote, mortgage fraud. But the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, Eric Siebert, a Trump appointee, refused to bring charges against Ms. James because there was simply no evidence. Unfortunately, a prosecutor who refuses to do Trump's bidding has no place in this DOJ, so Mr. Siebert was forced out. Trump could not contain his fury that he expressed to you in a social media post addressed to you by name. I'm sure you've seen it. Quote, I fired him and there is a great case, he wrote to you about Mr. Siebert. Then we moved down. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. And obviously, you followed that order. Lindsay Halligan, Trump's former defense lawyer who had never prosecuted a case in her life, was installed to replace Mr. Siebert, and it was clear that part of her mandate was to go after Ms. James. Halligan immediately sought an indictment, which a court dismissed because Halligan was illegally put into the role. But your department was undeterred, and not once, but twice, it tried to indict Attorney General James in separate courts. Both grand juries rejected you and refused to indict her. It is practically unheard of for a grand jury to refuse an indictment. In 2016, it happened in just 6 cases out of over 150,000 offenses. And you had it happen twice in the same week, in 2 different courts. That must have been humiliating. And now there are reports that you are continuing to investigate her. The amount of resources that have gone into targeting Attorney General James, months of investigations, multiple failed indictments, is astounding. Since your own prosecutors told you that there is not enough evidence to support a conviction, it's clear that you were going after her simply because she held President Trump accountable and he wants to punish her. And she is just one name on a long list of Trump political enemies that DOJ is reportedly targeting, from Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve to James Comey, numerous Democratic members of Congress, John Brennan, Jack Smith, Democratic officials in Minnesota, Chris Krebs, Miles Taylors, and more. And those are just the ones we know about. In contrast to these politically motivated investigations, grasping at something they can charge their enemies with, we now have concrete evidence of disgusting criminality revealed in the Epstein files. So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question
ridiculous.
the way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people, but I'm going to answer the question.
How many have you indicted?
Again, the time belongs to
Reclaiming my time.
The time belongs.
I think it's very interesting.
Reclaiming my time.
I think it's very interesting.
And you can
that
reclaim
he
your
talks
time,
about
but
they indicted. The president said they indicted him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock and restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these
Committee will be in order.
theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New York. We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when you ask a question, the witness gets to answer. You may not like the answer, but she gets to answer.
The question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like the answer, Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest. So he asked a 4-minute question.
Restore 45
and
seconds to
I
Mr.
am
Nadler,
going
please,
to
Mr. Chairman.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Reclaiming-
Not on our time. No way.
Reclaiming-
And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, oh, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I
Not a
said that
few more,
already.
45 seconds.
Okay, I'm timing right now, Mr. Nadler. Go
All
ahead.
right.
My time. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is 0. You have been the Attorney General for a whole year, and your DOJ fired the lead prosecutor of this case, sat on evidence this entire time, and claimed falsely last July that there were no more leads. It took an act of Congress for you to finally release part of the Epstein files, and when you did, you included personal information about the victims while protecting the names of abusers.
Time of the gentleman
None
has
of the perpetrators
expired.
have been brought to justice, but enormous resources
Time
are
of the
dedicated
gentleman
to
has
pursuing Trump's
expired,
enemies.
and
It's
obviously
clear
there
that
was-
under your leadership, the Department of Justice
There
no
was
longer
no
works
question
for American
in there
people. It
for
works
her to
for
respond
Donald
to.
Trump. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
I think our next questioner, Madam Attorney General, is going to give you time to respond to
Thank you, Chairman.
all kinds of.
Okay, absolute fireworks you were seeing there from the congressman out of New York, Jerry Nadler, and their Department of Justice leader, Pam Bondi. She is being very particular in how she is fighting back against some of these questions that are coming, particularly from the Democratic counterparts. Earlier, we saw a moment in which she was asked whether or not she would turn to Epstein survivors and others and victims who were in the room there, and whether or not she would apologize to them after we saw there were situations after the files were released that had people's information that was accessible. She did not do so in that moment, but she has said that of those Democratic leaders who are asking these questions, she has so far called them political theater and saying she will not get into the gutter. This is very similar to the last time we saw a hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was in before a committee hearing, and we could kind of see the tone very similar to this just months ago, quite combative between certain members of Congress, at that time certain members of the Senate, and the Attorney General. I will say this, though, because there was the conversation about indictments. I think it is important note before we go into a quick break here. News that just broke overnight is that a grand jury in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. just yesterday refused the Justice Department's attempt to indict a group of Democratic lawmakers who had encouraged U.S. military members to ignore what they called unlawful or illegal orders. Of those was also Senator Mark Kelly. If you recall, they posted that video on social media months ago that quickly became the ire of President Trump and others within the administration. The Justice Department attempted to file some form of charges against them. And the latest in that is that a grand jury has refused. The prosecution failed to get the grand jury to indict those senators. Okay, we do need to take a quick break at this moment. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Okay, we are back on Live Impact News here on 13 News Now Plus. Thank you for sticking with us as we are watching several things happening right now. When we were on the other side of this break, you heard the fireworks currently underway in that House committee meeting, Judiciary Committee meeting with Attorney General Pam Bondi, and the back and forth getting very tense, very heated between her and some of the congressmen there at the moment. We're also, though, want to remind you right now there is an appeals hearing taking place in South Carolina in the case of Alex Murdaugh. He is the person who has been convicted, now serving life sentences for the murders of his wife and son, convicted in 2023. And you can see there's video of him. That case really took national notoriety with several different TV shows and documentaries over the case. It became something that was very, very, very big when it came to popular people wanting to know what was happening with that case. Again, he is serving 2 consecutive life sentences for those 2021 murders, and now his attorney's trying to appeal that conviction at the moment. So let's do this. Let's take a few moments. We're going to get back to that hearing in Washington, D.C., but I would like for us to take a few moments there in South Carolina and listen to the attorneys pleading the case for and against Alex Murdaugh.
To address, our exculpatory evidence that we went by there at 42 miles an hour, and if we had tossed the phone out, it would have shown something. If they wanted to test that, they needed to put an expert in a car doing 42 miles an hour, throwing it out the window, and then checking the phone to see what happens, and do it multiple times. But you don't sit around in an office as if you're playing cornhole with a beanbag all weekend, and then come to court and say, sometimes it lights up and sometimes it doesn't light up. And therefore, I conclude that, it's more likely than not it wouldn't have lit up if Alex Murdaugh went by there at 42 miles an hour.
This is certainly an unconventional moment at the trial. And, I was reflecting back on 10 years of trying cases, none of which were 6 weeks long. And, in the state's reply, everybody's tired. Everybody's ready for the case to go to jury. It's almost like there's this unwritten rule of evidence that at that point in the trial, you can pretty much do whatever you want. But the question is, what did they do? And you're saying when they stood up to speak to Judge Newman, they said, we got an expert. In their brief, they talk about it simply being an experiment. Judge Newman listens to all this, and he calls it an experiment. He doesn't call it expert testimony. He says, page 6721, he did not provide scientific testimony. He conducted an experiment and told the jury about it. And I'm just wondering, do we really need to go through a 702 analysis here, or should we be talking about the admissibility of an experiment?
Well, I believe this court's opinion in State v. White in 2009 that Justice Kittredge wrote, there's no distinction between, it's an opinion testimony.
Well, that was an opinion. That was an opinion based on the work of a drug dog.
Right. So, and here we have an opinion testimony that when Alex Murdaugh goes by that location at 42 miles an hour, the light may come on, may not come on. More likely that it won't come on. So that's the opinion testimony. That is, whether it's scientific or experience, it doesn't matter under the analysis. But it had to be proven to be reliable, and it wasn't.
Mr. Griffin, I'd like for you to address the 404B issue, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe any of the evidence about the defendant's financial crimes could have been admitted under 404B as motive evidence?
No, not a bit, Your Honor, not as motive evidence.
And I have some questions, I'm sure we all do, for Mr. Waters in terms of the expanse that was allowed under 404B. Well, what about like Ms. Seckinger's testimony, for example, on the day of the discovery of the theft of the Ferris fees? What about the impending motion to compel hearing in the so-called boat case a few days later that would have arguably exposed the extent of his financial misdeeds? Why wouldn't that have some relevance for 404B motive purposes?
Well, we have the benefit of extensive in-camera hearing, well, not in-camera, but hearing outside the presence of the jury, and where all of these matters were testified to. And Ms. Seckinger said that on June 7th, she went to confront Alec about, this Ferris fee. Now, understand this Ferris fee is a one-off situation from all his other scams and schemes. This was attorney's fees that were due to the law firm that he diverted to himself. That's the Ferris fee. And that's what was their concern, and her testimony was they weren't concerned that he was stealing money from the firm. They were concerned that he was hiding money from civil discovery from the boating case, and they didn't want any part of that. She also says when she's in there talking to him, he gets a phone call. They put his dad back in the hospital, and I took my CFO hat on, and I put my friend hat on, my mama hat on, and I started comforting him, and that was the end of it.
So until the moment of the call about the impending declining health of the father, we're in the motive territory. But once the urgency was removed by that phone call, it somehow's off the table?
I still don't think it's motive, because what the cases cited by the state and any case that you look to, for motive, it has to, and the cases that admit these type evidence in a murder case, is that the person murdered is either the victim, the person murdered is a threat to report the crime, the person murdered has life insurance, or the murderer is bound to benefit financially to get himself or herself out of the financial hole. I mean, none of those typical motive issues are present. What was present is this claim of sympathy, which in West Virginia v. McGinnis, and that really is the closest case that we can find about this, Your Honor. I mean, they reversed a murder conviction for letting extensive financial crime evidence and other information in, and I would read to Your Honor the conclusion from the court in the West Virginia Supreme Court, and it says, the cumulative admission of the evidence under 404B, however, presents us with a likelihood that the jury convicted the defendant because of his character and not because of the evidence surrounding the murder. In these circumstances, these errors cannot be regarded as harmless. And you can't just piecemeal it either. I mean, we spent 10 witnesses over 6 days, 38 transactions.
Was there any 404B evidence that was proffered by the state that was disallowed?
No, Your Honor, not that I can recall. And then, so you have 404B analysis and you have 403, and really the unfair prejudice just by the weight and the extent of that evidence, the sheer volume, 38 transactions, $9.97 million, 10 separate witnesses. In State v. James, I know it's a little different because State v. James involved prior burglary convictions with an enhancement, but the conviction was reversed where 7 burglary convictions were admitted when they only required 2, and there were limiting instructions given, and the court said that was it was not harmless error when you pile on that much, and this was piling on.
Let me ask you a question about the legal point of whether there's a logical connection or some logical relevancy, using the language our cases have used. I mean, you make a lot of good arguments that it makes no sense. Like this, he would never have done it for this reason. And obviously those arguments are in part at least for the jury to iron out, right? I mean, you made them to the jury and they decide whether this makes sense in terms of a motive. But what I'm asking is, to what extent does the trial judge, when looking at a theory of motive that isn't 100% solid, to what extent does the trial judge analyze the believability, the ultimate usefulness of the theory of motive before admitting the evidence? Just to continue a second, in Lyle, we said that the trial judge has to clearly perceive the connection. Right. In Perry, we of course quoted that, but we also talked about the trial judge using a rigid scrutiny. I mean, really, in Lyle and Perry, though, the question was not the existence of a logical connection, because in Perry there clearly was one. I mean, in Lyle there clearly was one, and in Perry there clearly was not one. At least the majority said so. But in both cases, the real question was unfair prejudice. And I'm just wondering if this idea that the motive theory doesn't work is really a question of unfair prejudice as opposed to a question of logical relevancy.
Okay, you were just listening there to the Alex Murdaugh case in South Carolina. His attorneys are appealing the convictions that he got just now 2.5 years ago. 2 life sentences for the murders of his wife and son. And Sarah, you and I were talking about this. You are very keen on this case. You know, prominent attorney there in South Carolina in that area, comes from a really well-known family. We talked about how big this storyline took, about national prominence, people being very interested in this case. But it's one of those interesting ones still. There's still so many questions, though this conviction and sentence has already been passed down. Particularly, we're talking about the finances and exactly kind of what happened. That really is what kind of sparked all of this.
Yeah, the financial crimes. There were so many layers to this case, because it started with a boating accident with his son, who was one of the people he's convicted of killing. And a lot of people think that that boating accident is what put the spotlight on the family, and specifically their finances. And that was kind of what caused this to snowball.
Yeah, it's so many interesting layers of this, and reading from the prosecution that the day that his CFO of his company called and said, hey, there's some issues, about $800,000 is missing, it was later that day when the 911 call made by Murdaugh saying that he had found his wife and son shot outside their home there in South Carolina. So I think for a lot of different reasons, people have really been drawn to this case. Now, it'll be interesting to hear the arguments for the appeal here. Murdaugh has continued to maintain his innocence in all of this, but they've been alleging that there was jury tampering in this. So I think you can kind of hear from the judge some of the questions that they already have, like how are you going to prove and argue some of these points within this case. You know, it's not our position to give our thoughts on what's going to happen there, but clearly his attorneys are going to have a really good argument to get those convictions undone. Okay, so we just want to take you to that. So much more we still have for you here on Live Impact News, including in a few minutes we have a special interview. Have you ever felt burnt out at work, or you fear that you could be getting there soon? Well, we have someone who is an expert in that discussion who's going to join us on the other side of this break on the tips for you to make sure that doesn't happen. Stick with us here. Okay, thank you for sticking with us there for a little bit of a longer break. We're going to see right now, I told you that we have a special guest who is joining us here this morning to talk about a question that a lot of people have, particularly if you are a high performer. How do I avoid burnout? Now, I need to make sure that she can hear us. We have Elizabeth McCoy, the rest strategist, joining us here this morning. Elizabeth, can you hear me? I think she can. I think we just need to make sure that we can hear her real quick here. Let's see, one more time. Elizabeth, can you can hear me? Okay, I'm reading her lips at the moment that she can. We're going to try to get this figured out real quick to make sure that we can get her up here for the moment. So let's do this. Let's take one quick break, one more, run these just real quick, and we're going to get her up here because I think this is something that a lot of people need to know. Elizabeth, give us just a second. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for sticking with us. We've been trying to figure this out. This is live breaking. Everything is happening in the moment, even sometimes when we're trying to figure out. Now, we're going to try it one more time because, again, I think this will be really great for a lot of people, really timely right now. But first, let me make sure we have rest strategist Elizabeth McCoy. She is joining us here this morning. We're going to try one more time to see if we can hear you and go from there. All right, Elizabeth, say something for me. Let me see if I can hear you. we can't quite, for some reason. Okay, here's what we're going to do. It's okay. I know. It's okay. We think this is such an important conversation. We're going to bring you back. We're going to bring you back, but we're going to try to figure this out. But we'll figure out when we can bring you back so we can talk about it, because a lot of people need to know how they can avoid burnout, particularly if you are trying to do well in your role, and a lot of people are high performers. We're going to try to do that. But for right now, let's go ahead. We'll head back to the hearing that is taking place in Washington, D.C. Attorney General Pam Bondi is currently speaking. We'll try to figure things out on our end here.
General Bondi, would you agree that your 8 years of service as the state of Florida's Attorney General, the third largest state in the nation, served as an excellent preparation for your current role as Attorney General for the United States of America?
Not only that, I was a career prosecutor for
18 years.
And for 18 years.
And for 18 years,
He
you
asked a question and doesn't want an
prosecuted-
answer. This is theatrics.
Well, no, for 18 years, you prosecuted serious felony cases, including drug cases, correct?
Oh, I prosecuted homicides. I prosecuted capital cases. I prosecuted domestic violence cases. I prosecuted multiple cases, and that's why I feel for all of these victims. And did you ask Merrick Garland this when you were sitting before him, sir?
You also prosecuted sexual assault cases and child sex trafficking cases, correct?
I answered that question earlier. I prosecuted multiple cases when I was a prosecutor.
Bottom line, you're an experienced and seasoned.
For 18 years.
Mr. Chairman, will you reminder of the rules? The time belongs to the member of the committee.
You are a seasoned and experienced prosecutor, correct?
I think we've established that.
Yes or no?
Does he want an answer or not?
I think he wants to say
I want a yes or no answer.
I think he wants to say
I want a
no.
yes or no answer, but I'll live with what you have already said. Let me ask you this question.
Clearly,
in the prosecution of sexual assault cases, you are acutely aware of how important it is to protect the identity of victims of sexual assault, correct?
I have addressed this multiple times. I think others were cutting me off when I was trying to.
I just simply asked, are you aware of the fact that it's vitally important to protect the identity of sexual assault victims as you prosecute the people they accuse of assaulting them? Isn't that correct?
Excuse me. As we have said multiple times,
protection of the identity
of all victims
of the victims
are
is
protected.
so very
you are
important.
protected under. Do you want me to answer or do you want to interrupt?
Well, because you're not answering the question. You do a Jekyll and Hyde kind of routine around here, and I just want you to answer my questions.
What does Jekyll and Hyde mean? Can you explain
means
that?
you're nice to the
Explain
Republicans and you turn like Hyde on Democrats. But let me ask you this, ma'am. We have the Epstein victim survivors here today. Representative Jayapal asked a simple question: if you would be so kind and honorable as to turn around and face them and apologize to them for outing them. I mean, how many lives have been derailed because your department was either sloppy and incompetent or willfully trying to intimidate and punish these ladies for coming forward?
Which was it? The time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin for 5 minutes.
Attorney General Bondi, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have spent the past several months attacking the administration for doing exactly what the American people wanted when they overwhelmingly elected President Trump, securing our border and enforcing our immigration laws. I find it a bit ironic because this is the same party who just a few years ago were openly supporting strong immigration enforcement after witnessing criminal illegal aliens wreak havoc on the American communities. I have a short video I just wanted to play.
Of immigrants. We're also a nation of laws. Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe that they must be held accountable.
They've committed a crime,
deport them. No questions asked, they're gone.
No great nation can be in a position where they can't control their borders.
While we need to address the issue of immigration and the challenge we have of undocumented people in our country, we certainly don't want any more coming in.
Every place in this country are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens.
Illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple. When we use phrases like undocumented workers, we convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration, which the American people overwhelmingly oppose. If you don't think it's illegal, you're not going to say it. I think it is illegal and wrong.
Open the borders, my God. You know, there's a lot of poverty in this world, and you got people from all over the world, and I don't think that's something that we can do at this point. Can't do it.
Yes or no? Would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this country.
So, Attorney General Bondi, what's the Trump administration, DOJ, doing to end the open border policies of the prior administration that saw dangerous drugs and criminal aliens flood our communities?
Congressman, President Trump has worked tirelessly, as you know, to close our border, which is what the Democrats had asked for in that video. President Trump closed our borders on day one. He is protecting Americans. He is protecting our kids from the influx of drugs that were flowing into this country from Mexico. The fentanyl precursors that were coming from China. These precursors were taken from China into Mexico. And in Mexico, they were mixed and freely taken right into our country, along with gang members, MS-13, TDA, freely coming into our cities around our country, thanks to Joe Biden's open border policies. That has stopped under Donald Trump. It will no longer happen under this administration, and he is doing everything to keep Americans safe. And let me continue. When he was elected overwhelmingly by the American people, the majority of the American people wanted Donald Trump. One of the main reasons was border security and keeping Americans safe. And that's exactly what he did. And that's why today the other side sits here, they yell, they cut me off, they want to yell, they want to ask a question and don't want answers because they want to distract from all the great things that this president and this administration working hand in hand, and that includes Secretary Noem, who has closed our borders, and Tom Homan, who has closed our borders to keep Americans safe. And they're trying to distract from that, and they're not going to do it because the American people are smarter than that, and they see through their theatrics.
Thank you. Just quickly, yesterday, Senator Grassley reached out to my office to tell me that I was one of the 20.
Again, that hearing taking place live right now in the nation's capital with Attorney General Pam Bondi being questioned by House Judiciary Committee members on the state of the Department of Justice and their actions that they are taking in a wide variety of things. You just heard her ask a question on border security. Okay, we figured out a way in which our interview can move forward. We're thankful for that. And we wanted to have a conversation today for people who are experiencing or fear they could experience soon workplace burnout, particularly if you are a high performance person. You want to do well. We have with us today, called the REST strategist, Elizabeth McCoy. She joins us this morning to give us some tips on how you can avoid that burnout. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me, Eugene, and working through all these technical difficulties.
Hey,
it's definitely appreciated.
It's what happens, right? We got a live show, all new things we're trying to figure out. Sometimes it happens. I'm glad that you were patient to stick with us through it as well. So let's first talk about burnout. My first question to you is, what are some of the signs that someone may be burning out at their job or whatever they may be doing, and they need to maybe change some things?
So I want you to walk in this visual with me. When you think about burnout and if you are burning out, imagine going to your refrigerator in the morning and you notice that you have cereal but no milk. What is your response to that situation? If your response is, I just need to go to the store or put in an Instacart order and get more milk delivered, or stop on the way to get something to eat, it's likely stress. However, if you have a much more heightened response where you are feeling just all of the pressures, then we're probably heading towards burnout. So burnout is that very specific experience where the stress does not alleviate with some minor corrections.
Okay, I'm glad you gave that description, and hopefully people, when they hear it, they're thinking, okay, am I potentially on the track to burnout? So if you experience that, if someone's out there saying, you know what, I kind of feel that way, what are some of the things they should do immediately?
Immediately, I would say take off some time from work. It takes approximately 72 hours before your nervous system sets or resets while you're on vacation. So the weekend is not sufficient. A week is not sufficient, especially if you are still checking emails and answering phone calls.
So it's just, I'm listening to you say these things, Elizabeth. At some point, I'm like, okay, I know that it is hard for me to put down my phone. Do you get that often for people, particularly now that we're in this society where you mentioned checking emails, having your phone? I have access, or people have access to me seemingly 24/7. So what can I do about that?
So about that, Eugene, you would actually turn off the notifications for those particular apps or create a certain focus mode in your phone so that only certain notifications come through.
Okay, I'm jotting down notes right now, Elizabeth. I don't know if you know that, but I'm taking mental note of a lot of the stuff that you're saying. Now, you call yourself the rest strategist, so I imagine rest is a huge part of what you teach and what you coach. How can someone maximize their rest? And it kind of sounds like we're talking about a little bit about recovery as well. What are some things that you recommend to maximize rest and recovery?
So when you think about maximizing rest and recovery, one thing I want you to always remember is that there is no output without proper rest. So we all want to do a great job. When we are maximizing rest, you are taking this as important as you are taking the task on your $1 million calendar. You are going to create very strict boundaries around your rest strategy. And you are going to ensure that you comply with the rules of your rest. And that rest is whether it is time off from work, and we are actually cutting away. If you're actually spending time with your kids at a game, you're going to be fully present. If you are going out with your spouse this weekend or your partner this weekend, because it is Valentine's Day, you are going to fully cut away and just enjoy the moments that are before you.
You know, I once heard it said, someone, I can't remember the context or where I heard it, but the goal to, a lot of people work to rest, but what would it look like if you worked out of rest? And so I've always kind of thought about that over the years. But, you know, there's a cost to burnout. You know, we talk about being efficient and being great workers and all the things that we're talking about here. Can you kind of explain in your expertise the back end of it when someone is burned out and they reach that point, how it can be detrimental to the workplace, to communities, to yourself if you do get to a point where it's too much?
So I want you to consider this visual. On average, the additional finances you'll put towards recovery or towards self-care is about $10,000 to $15,000 a year, depending on your level of job. If you are $1 million CEO or you're running a $1 million calendar, then that number is going to grow exponentially. So number one, the more that we work, the more that we are going to need to recover. As far as a company, I want you to multiply that times your high performers. Having rest strategies available at the company and corporate levels are the key to reducing burnout within the company and reducing turnover amongst your high performing employees.
Okay, so that's really good for people to kind of hear, especially if you are in some form of leadership as well. I appreciate you kind of spelling all that out. I mean, you mentioned this weekend is Valentine's Day, so hopefully people are able to take some rest with their significant other or whatever that may look like, even if they don't have a significant other, just to rest on the weekend. We appreciate you so much for joining us here. Any last things that you'd want to share for our viewers when it comes to this topic that you really want them to know as we close out?
So, of course, Eugene, if you are needing a rest strategist in your life, and if you are a high performer, I can almost guarantee that you do, you can look up the Luxury Recharge Collective, and that is where you can book a reclamation call with me, and we will go through the specific strategies that you need to keep maintaining your $1 million calendar on a fully charged battery.
I know that's right. That is Elizabeth McCoy joining us this morning, the rest strategist. We appreciate you for joining us here. Hopefully somebody can use the words that you just said to prioritize their rest and still maintain their efficiency and high performance at work. Thank you so much for being patient as we worked out those tech glitches there, and we appreciate you, and we'll have to bring you back sometime as well, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. All right, really good to have her on to talk about that. Listen, we know that in today's work climate that we are constantly on the go, on the go, on the go. A lot of people just want to do well in their careers, right? We can do that at the expense of rest, though. So that was one of the big things we wanted to bring her on, just looking at a few recent polling, etc. A lot of people have been feeling that burnout. Hopefully those are some tips that you can use so that you can avoid it. Sarah, I think this is a good time. Let's take another quick break here. We still have a few things going on right now, particularly in our nation's capital, that are important to you and me. So we'll have more on that in just about 2 minutes.
America. They take great pride.
Okay, thank you for sticking with us here for Live Impact News. We're going to go back to Washington, D.C., but this time not for the hearing featuring Attorney General Pam Bondi. As we've told you all week, that the Department of Homeland Security risks running out of funding if lawmakers are unable to reach an agreement come Friday. Well, right now there is a hearing happening in the House Appropriations Committee in which lawmakers are talking to top officials across the government. What will happen if DHS runs out of funding? What do we risk to lose? What could potentially happen across multiple agencies, including things like the TSA? So let's go ahead and now listen in to not the TSA. I'm sorry for that. A few different organizations that are happening. We have several leaders who are speaking right now. Let's head to it.
Facilities to deal with a raging border crisis, which we have now reversed course on over the last 4 years. We are fixing the problems that were created by the previous administration. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. I'm sorry we have to have this hearing. I wish we weren't in the unfortunate situation of entering another potential government shutdown and putting thousands of good people who are working for your agencies at risk and their lives and their livelihoods. Yolanda, thank you for traveling here. It's nice to see you. And I fly through the airport. CID is my home turf, and I appreciate the great work that you and your entire team have done. You're so professional. You've been assaulted personally. You have caught terrible things coming through security. You're keeping us all safe. So I want to say thank you to the men and women you work with for all of that steadfast support you've provided, even in the uncertainty of what is happening here. It's a real travesty in my mind. Again, under President Trump, we have seen a complete reversal of the dangerous situation at our southern border, the illegal immigration crisis. Our border is closed. Those soft-sided facilities that were a suck on taxpayers to the tune of billions of dollars a year are closed. We're having the lowest number of encounters in decades. We're also seeing how, though, bad actors continue to pop up even with a closed southern border, whether it be on our coasts, our ports of entry, or at our airports. So from the Coast Guard to TSA to CISA, these officers are showing up at work, our Secret Service agents, our FEMA employees. Every single day they're showing up at work to do this job while going unpaid for weeks on end. And I'm sure there's incredible unease and uncertainty amongst your staff as we head into Friday. And for that, I am sorry. We are trying to fix this problem here today. So, Ms. McNeil, I just want to talk first about TSA. We've already touched on some of the impacts to the workforce and some of the means that people are trying to feed their families by seeking out other employment opportunities to make those ends meet. Can you talk a little bit about what this means for not only morale for your workforce, but for potential recruitment? Because we have an aging workforce in many places. We have to have other people coming into the pipeline. What does this mean for that?
Thank you, Congresswoman. As I stated earlier, we are seeing a higher attrition rate in the October to November time period last year as compared to that same time period the year before, a 25% increase. So that is a significant impact on our workforce. We do hear regularly, I do in my conversations with the frontline workforce, as does my TSA leadership, about the strain that this poses on them and how it is that they can go home and justify staying in a job where they might not be paid for 6 weeks. They have families to care for. Just yesterday, we were talking with the officers who are sitting behind me, and one of them mentioned that a passenger came through the airport and shared with him that they had been considering joining the TSA, but could not make that decision because of the uncertainties in budgeting for the agency.
So it is affecting recruitment as we speak, that uncertainty. You talk about the impact on our national security posture. You said, that the government shuts down, cyber threats do not. That was a line that I will certainly take away from this hearing. And with the rise of China's use of cyber warfare, obviously CISA is just an incredible part of our firewall, such a key force in being able to keep our networks and the connected infrastructure safe. So can you describe the impact of a shutdown on your operations and the ability to maintain those routine cybersecurity measures that we rely on not only at the federal level, but with our state and local partners like in Iowa?
Yeah, Congresswoman, thank you. I think, like I said before, our activities will be strictly limited to protecting life and property. But we will do everything we can to meet the mission during a shutdown. We will have about 35 to 40% of our staff, about 900 people who will be working without pay. And uncertainty and those missed paychecks are a serious hardship. We have a dedicated and amazing staff that works 24/7 and obstructing some of those nation-state adversaries that we have. These impacts are not something that we take lightly, and the longer a shutdown drags the less sustainable it becomes for our dedicated employees and their families.
Certainly a great impact there. And then I want to move to FEMA because in Iowa, we have a lot of severe weather. We have seen firsthand. We had the costliest thunderstorm in U.S. history come through about 6 years ago, derecho, $11 billion in damage. And we just got out of this 43-day government shutdown 3 months ago. How long, Mr. Phillips, does it take FEMA to recover from a government shutdown? And are you still working your way out of the last one? Can you expand on that a little?
Yes, ma'am. We are, in fact, still working our way out of the last one. The challenge for us is not just on an ongoing basis, especially during recovery. So as we're helping your state recover from the big storm, the big things that happen, and it's recovery that is really hurt. Emergencies and response, so when it's really going down and we show up and our teams show up and we partner with the states, we support the states, that will continue. But the challenge is, you know, especially as it relates to the DRF and money and how we process, it's the processing of that going forward that's really going to be hurt. And so I believe that the most important thing as it relates to the lapse from our perspective is not our ability to respond in the emergency, it's our ability to adequately support the states during recovery. With that said, ma'am, I've heard a lot about President Trump and Secretary Noem today. This is not the secretary that I met during the winter storm. This is a secretary who showed up. She was there with us sometimes through the night. She stayed, she worked with us, she cared about people. She and I had a conversation about leading with your heart, doing good, and helping people. And that's the Secretary Noem that I know, and I'm not sure, you know, where the rest of this is coming from, but I've had the great fortune in my career to work for a lot of great leaders. Secretary Noem is a great leader, and I have no way to associate some of the comments I've heard with Secretary Noem.
Well, thank you very much for all of your service. You're doing a great job leading through a very tumultuous time, and I appreciate it. Thank you for answering our questions today. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad to hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle talk about how difficult it's going to be for these agencies, and not for the agencies, for the people who work in these agencies, and furloughs and families and so forth, all of whom we care about deeply. Please sign on to the legislation that I introduced this morning that says, in fact, what we will do is we will provide a FEMA $32 million, a disaster relief fund, a 20% increase to federal assistance, increase the agency's ability to support response and recovery. Secret Service will do overtime pay for agents. That's in the bill. Coast Guard, we were going to pay, you know, for Coast Guard. So my colleague from Hawaii pointed this out. This is not about all of you. It's not about your folks. We can take care of them. We agreed to do that in the bill. This is about ICE reform. And I might add that, as I say, where is the secretary? My colleagues on the other side of the aisle need to know that during the shutdown, she bought 2 private jets, came out of the Coast Guard money. 2 private jets to fly all over the United States, okay? So why wasn't that money used for Coast Guard and for the families there? And if there is, the other point that needs to be made here is 47 days of training. And you know there's also a $50,000 signing bonus for folks in ICE. $50,000. Who's going to, you know, so, and who are we recruiting? Who are we recruiting with those incentives? Said, if there's a shutdown, it will be the responsibility of Republican leadership. The public blamed you in the last go-round. They're going to blame you now because you want to take responsibility for what ICE is doing. You will bear that responsibility, and what the public feels about what's happening with ICE and CBP that are terrorizing U.S. citizens and beating up and harassing American citizens around the country. It is about reforming ICE. That is what this issue is about. Now, I want to ask a few questions of FEMA, if I might. First of all, I wish my colleagues had been so vocal in the spring and so vocal during the shutdown about all of the difficulties that your folks were having. They were not. very vocal about that. And they did not speak up. Secretary Noem was brave enough to appear before us last May. Where is she now? And I asked her if President Trump was planning to eliminate FEMA, and she replied, and this was a quote, "FEMA, as it exists today, should be eliminated." I told you my story about the senior official who came, who then was summarily fired. To Administrator Phillips, do you think FEMA should be eliminated?
I think that Secretary Noem and President Trump have made clear that they believe that FEMA needs specific and detailed transformation.
Okay.
And I not only concur with that, but they asked me to come here and implement that.
Okay.
We're working through it since I've been here, or since I've been at FEMA. We've done, let's see, three major declarations.
You answered my question. So let me go on. You may have to, the actions under Secretary Noem's tell a different story. FEMA's tried to cancel billions of dollars in grants for communities across this country. $4 billion in BRIC, building resilience infrastructure in communities, been promised to communities like mine. In my district, cancellation of a BRIC program has jeopardized $25 million that New Haven was awarded to protect our downtown against damage from flooding as we face increasingly serious storms. In Crisfield, Maryland, not far from here.
Okay, again, before we got out into that, I said, yes, TSA is a part of it. We have the Secret Service, the deputy director for that is there. The Office of Response and Recovery for FEMA is also a part of this as well. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and the U.S. Coast Guard, all of those agencies represented in this particular hearing. But that is all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us. A lot that we tackled here for Live Impact News today. Remember, you can always find us on our app, 13 News Now Plus. Download it for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. We'll